I live alone in a small one-bedroom apartment in Ohio. It's the kind of place where you can hear your neighbors sneeze through the walls, so noises never really bothered me. But in early January of 2025, something new started happening. Something I couldn't pretend was normal. Every night, almost exactly at 2:03 a.m., I began hearing this soft sound coming from the air vent above my bed. At first I thought it was the wind, or maybe the heating system kicking in. But this wasn't a mechanical sound. It was rhythmic, slow, repeating. It sounded like someone whispering. The first night I ignored it. The second night I turned my phone's flashlight toward the vent, but of course I didn't see anything. Just dark metal slats and dust. On the third night, I actually got out of bed and pressed my ear against the wall. That's when I realized. It wasn't whispering. It was breathing. Slow, controlled breathing, like someone trying to stay quiet. I stepped back immediately, heart racing. The vent was too small for a person to crawl through, but the sound was unmistakably human. I barely slept, telling myself it must be pipes or air pressure. But what happened the next night destroyed that explanation completely. I'd gotten home late from work, ate dinner, and passed out on my bed without even turning off the lamp. But something woke me up. The sound again. Not breathing this time. A new sound. A voice. Whispering. Very faint, but definitely words. I sat up slowly, feeling the cold air hit my face as I stared at the vent above me. The voice said something like, "Are you awake?" I held my breath. I wanted to believe I hadn't heard it clearly, but my body knew I had. The whisper came again, clearer this time. "Don't move." Every muscle in my body locked. I didn't blink. I didn't breathe. It felt like if I made even the smallest sound, whatever was behind that vent would know exactly where I was. The whispering stopped abruptly, like it realized I was listening. Then I heard a slow dragging sound, metal against metal. As if something had shifted deep inside the ductwork. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I went to maintenance. I told them I thought something was wrong with the ventilation system. Maybe an animal was inside. 2 guys came to my apartment, unscrewed the vent, and checked inside with a flashlight. They looked confused. "There's hair in here," one said. He pulled out a clump of long black hair tangled around a piece of fabric. Not animal fur. Real human hair. I felt sick. They tried to reassure me, said maybe it fell in from another apartment, maybe someone had been cleaning the vents recently. But the duct was too deep. Too dark. Too narrow. "No one has been in there," the second guy said quietly. I didn't tell them about the whispering. I didn't tell them the vent had spoken my name. Because yes, that happened next. That I tried staying up late to avoid hearing it again. I kept the TV on, wore headphones, anything to drown out the silence. But exhaustion always wins. On the next night, I woke up again, 2:03 a.m., with this intense feeling that someone was watching me. The room was cold. Colder than usual. I could see my breath faintly in the lamplight. Then I heard it. From the vent. A slow breath in. A slow breath out. Then, "Emily." I felt my stomach drop. Hearing your own name whispered by an unseen voice, from inside your home, there's no way to describe that fear. The whisper came again, louder. "Emily. I know you're awake." I grabbed my phone and scrambled out of bed, sprinting into the living room and locking the bedroom door behind me. I sat on the couch until sunrise, shaking. That morning, I called my landlord and demanded to be moved to another unit. She said she'd put in a request but couldn't guarantee anything soon. So that night, I slept on the couch again. At least, I tried to. Around 4:20 a.m., I woke to the sound of something moving in the kitchen. Not footsteps. Not whispers. Dragging. Something heavy scraping across the floorboards. I sat up slowly, too scared to turn on the lights. The dragging stopped. Then I heard a soft click. The sound of the metal vent cover in the kitchen, falling onto the floor. I forced myself to look. I didn't want to, but instinct made me glance toward the kitchen. The vent cover was on the ground, and something was inside the dark hole in the wall, something moving, like a hand slowly retracting back into the duct. Long fingers, pale skin, too thin. I ran out of the apartment barefoot, called the police, and didn't go back inside until I had officers with me. They searched everywhere: bedrooms, closets, bathroom, attic, basement, ducts. They found nothing. But in the kitchen vent, deep in the metal, they found scratch marks. Fresh ones, made by fingernails. The officer's exact words stayed with me. "These scratches are recent. Whatever made them was trying to pull itself forward." I moved out within 48 hours. No one ever figured out what, or who, was breathing through my vents. And sometimes, late at night, I swear I still hear my name whispered in the dark.
I've driven for rideshare apps for almost 6 years. Late nights, drunk passengers, weird conversations, I've seen everything. But nothing in my life has ever shaken me the way the ride in March 2025 did. I still think about it every time I work the night shift. It was around 1:45 a.m., the slowest time of the night, when I received a ride request from a woman named Lydia. Pickup was on a quiet road near some older apartment complexes, the kind where a few lights flicker and the parking lot is always half empty. Most drivers avoid trips like that, but money is money. I arrived at the location within 5 minutes. I recognized the spot immediately, a long sidewalk with no street lamps. The only light came from a weak orange bulb over the entrance to one of the buildings. And under that light, a woman was standing perfectly still. At first, I honestly thought she was a mannequin. Her posture was stiff, her head slightly tilted down, her arms at her sides. But as I pulled up closer, she slowly lifted her head. Not fast, very slowly, like she hadn't moved in a long time. She didn't wave. She didn't say anything. She just walked toward the back door of my car and got in. The movement felt wrong. Like she was too light or too slow. Her clothes looked outdated, an old gray dress, loose cardigan, hair falling over her face. When she closed the door, she didn't buckle her seatbelt. She didn't even sit up straight. She just leaned slightly against the window and whispered, "Thank you." Her voice was dry and quiet, like she hadn't used it in days. I glanced at my phone. Destination, Oak Ridge Cemetery, 15 minutes away. A cemetery. At 2 in the morning. I swallowed hard, but I didn't question it. People have weird reasons for being places. My job is to drive, not judge. I started the ride. For the first few minutes, she didn't say a word. Not a single sound. Most people on late-night rides either talk too much or fall asleep immediately. She did neither. Then, without warning, she whispered, "People don't stop for me anymore." I felt my skin crawl. Her voice came from so close, but the car felt freezing suddenly. I turned up the heat, pretending not to notice. "Oh, well, it's late," I said casually. "Not many drivers out right now." She didn't respond. We passed under a streetlight, and for the first time I could see her face clearly in the mirror. Her skin was extremely pale. Her eyes were sunken, almost bruised underneath. Her lips had a bluish tint, like someone who'd been standing out in the cold for hours. Still, I kept driving. About halfway to the cemetery, we hit a long, empty stretch of road. No houses, no cars, just woods on both sides. That's when she whispered again. Soft. Barely audible. "Turn, here." But the road she pointed to wasn't on the GPS. It was a narrow dirt path between trees. "I can't take unpaved roads," I said gently. "It's not part of the turn." Her voice suddenly became sharp. Not loud, just sharp. Like she was upset I didn't listen the first time. I kept driving straight, pretending I didn't hear the change in her tone. A few seconds passed. Then she began whispering to herself. Fast. Unintelligible. Like a long chain of words without spaces. I couldn't understand anything she said. It sounded like a different language, but not one I'd ever heard before. I pulled my eyes to the mirror again. Her head was down, her hair covering her face, whispering, whispering, whispering. I turned up the radio to drown it out. But the radio started playing static. Just static. As the location approached, my stomach tightened. I tried to tell myself it was just a weird passenger, nothing more. When we reached the entrance of the cemetery, I slowed to a stop and shifted into park. "We're here," I said. Silence. I turned around. The back seat was empty. I didn't even hear the door open. The child's safety locks were on. The ride was still active on the app. I blinked hard, confused. I stepped out of the car with my phone flashlight and looked around. No one. Not on the sidewalk. Not by the gate. Not near the graves. Just cold air and silence. My hands started shaking. I walked back toward my car. And that's when I saw it. On the inside of the rear passenger door. The window was fogged up. And drawn into the moisture was a handprint. Small. Thin. Pressed from the inside. I got back in the car and ended the ride manually, hands trembling. But when I checked the dashcam footage at home, that's when my blood ran cold. The camera showed my car pulling up to the sidewalk. Me tapping my phone. Me looking toward the building. But the back door, it never opened. Not once. Throughout the ride, the back seat was completely empty. The camera recorded my voice speaking to her. Responding to her. Reacting to her. But no one was behind me. And worst of all, near the end of the footage, when I said, "We're here," a voice from the empty back seat whispered, "Thank you for stopping, this time." The camera glitched. The screen went black. I haven't driven nights since. And sometimes when I pass by that cemetery on my daytime routes, I swear I see a woman standing by the entrance. Still. Head tilted down. Waiting for someone to stop. I live in a small 2-story house in Ohio, and for years, my basement door never had a doorbell. There was no reason for it. No one goes down there except me. But in February of 2025, I started hearing a ding sound coming from downstairs, exactly like a doorbell. At first, I thought it was the smoke detector or maybe my phone. But the sound was too clear, too sharp, like someone pressing a real doorbell button. The first time it happened, it was around 11 p.m. I was in my room, scrolling on my phone, when I heard ding. It came from directly below me, the basement. I froze. There was no reason that sound should exist. I didn't install anything. I didn't even have wiring down there for a chime. I tried to ignore it, but then it rang again. Ding. This time longer, like someone pressing the button a little harder. I walked to the top of the stairs, peeking into the darkness. Everything was silent. I forced myself to go down a few steps, shining my phone's flashlight ahead. The beam shook because my hand was trembling. "Hello?" I said quietly. No answer. But as soon as I reached the bottom, nothing. No movement. No sound. The doorbell wasn't even real. There was literally nothing on the wall where the ringing came from. I convinced myself it must have been the pipes or the heat expanding. But I was wrong. The next night, at around 1:30 a.m., it rang again. Not once. Not twice. But 3 slow rings. Ding. 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 The sound echoed through the house like someone was standing inches behind the basement door, pressing an invisible button. This time I didn't go downstairs. I simply locked the basement door and shoved a chair under the handle. But around an hour later, someone started knocking. Knock, knock, knock. Slow. Heavy. Too spaced apart to be human. I didn't sleep that night. Over the next week, the ringing became predictable, almost like a schedule. 2:14 a.m. 4:03 a.m. 11:57 p.m. Every day, at different hours, the bell rang, always from the exact same spot on the basement wall. I tried recording it, but the audio never captured the ringing clearly. It always came out distorted, like static or interference. One night, when it rang again, I snapped. I grabbed a hammer, went downstairs, and started smashing the part of the wall where the sound came from. I tore out the wooden paneling, dusty insulation, and even some wiring. Behind it, I found something. A massive, old metal panel, like part of a door. Not my basement door. A second one. Hidden behind the wall. It was rusted, heavy, and it had a small round button on it. A doorbell. A real one. My heart dropped. Someone, or something, had been ringing it from the other side. And then, right in front of me, the button pressed inward on its own. Ding! I screamed and scrambled upstairs, locking the door. I didn't go back down the rest of the night. 2 nights later, things escalated. Around 3 a.m., the ringing started again, but this time, it didn't stop. Ding! 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 Like someone was holding the button down or hitting it repeatedly. Then came scratching. Long, heavy claws dragging across the metal. Then pounding. Thud. 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 So violent the floorboards shook. I stood there frozen, holding my phone, debating calling the police, but what would I even say? There's something ringing a doorbell behind a secret wall in my basement. The pounding stopped. Silence. Then I heard something far worse. A deep, guttural breathing, coming from inside the wall. Just on the other side of the hidden door. Slow. Wet. Animal-like. I backed away slowly until I reached the stairs. Then, suddenly, the breathing stopped. And the metal door on the other side of the wall let out a loud metallic click. Like a lock being undone. I didn't wait. I ran out of my house in the middle of the night barefoot, got into my car, and didn't come back until sunrise. When I returned with 2 officers the next day, the basement wall was quiet. No breathing. No scratches. The metal door was still there, but the button was broken off, lying on the floor. The cops said they didn't know what the door could have been. Old storage bunker. Storm shelter. Root cellar. But the strangest thing was this. On the inside of my basement door, the normal one, there were fingerprints. Dirty. Smudged. But shaped like long, unnatural fingers dragging downward. Like something had tried to push the door open from the inside. I moved out 2 weeks later. Now I live in an apartment on the 3rd floor, no basement under me. But sometimes, when I'm lying in bed late at night, I swear I hear it again. A faint, distant ding. I work as a rideshare driver to pay for college. I drive mostly at night because the surge pricing is better, and honestly, I like the quiet. Less traffic. Less noise. Less hassle. But back in April of 2025, something started happening to me that nearly made me quit driving forever. It began with a single woman. Appearing in my rearview mirror. It was a Thursday night, around 2 a.m. I picked up a woman from outside a bar downtown. She was small, pale, wearing a long black coat that looked too heavy for spring. Her hair was messy, covering most of her face. She didn't say a word when she got in. Not hello. Not her name. Not even hi. Just closed the door and sat rigidly in the back seat, staring straight ahead. The ride was only 8 minutes long, but the silence made it feel double. Every time I glanced at the rearview mirror, she wasn't looking at her phone, the window, or the road. She was looking at me. Right into the mirror. Eyes wide, unblinking. I tried to shrug it off. Drunk people stare sometimes. But something about her expression felt wrong. Emotionless. Empty. Like she wasn't even fully conscious. When I dropped her off at the address, she didn't move for a few seconds. Then she opened the door slowly and stepped out without saying a single word. Creepy, but I figured that was it. I was wrong that I was driving down a quiet street at around 1 a.m. No passengers. Just me. That's when I glanced at the mirror. And saw her. The same pale woman. Sitting in my back seat. Same black coat. Same messy hair. But her face this time. It was closer to the mirror, like she was leaning forward. I gasped and slammed the brakes so hard that I nearly hit a parked car. When I whipped around, the back seat was empty. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I'd pass out. I pulled over, turned on the interior lights, and checked under the seats, the trunk, everything. Nothing. I thought maybe I was exhausted and hallucinating. But then it happened again. And again, for the next 5 nights, the same thing kept happening. I'd be alone in my car. Driving normally. No passengers. But every so often, when I checked the rearview mirror, she would be there. Always in the same seat. Always wearing the same coat. Always staring into the mirror, straight at me. Sometimes leaning forward. Sometimes sitting stiff and straight. Once, her head was tilted to the side at an unnatural angle. But every time I turned around, empty. The air in the car would turn colder whenever she appeared. The kind of cold you feel in your bones, not the AC kind. My friends said it might be stress. My mom said maybe I picked up a bad spirit from driving so late. But I didn't believe in ghosts. That changed soon. That it was around 3:15 a.m. I was driving down a long stretch of rural road, no streetlights, no houses, nothing but trees. My phone buzzed with a new trip request. I glanced down at it for half a second. When I looked back up at the mirror, she wasn't in the back seat. She was right behind my head. Her face was filling the top half of the mirror. Her mouth hanging open wider than it should naturally open. And in a soft, broken whisper, she said, "Don't look back." I froze. My entire body locked up. I didn't turn around. I didn't breathe. Then I felt something. Cold fingertips brushing the back of my neck. I screamed and swerved the car to the side of the road, tires screeching. I jumped out and ran several feet away, shaking uncontrollably. The car lights were still on. The back seat was empty. But the back door was slightly open. That I went home and didn't drive for 3 days. I didn't sleep much either. On the 4th day, my friend Mark, another rideshare driver, looked at my ride history over the last week. Then he asked me something I will never forget. "Bro, what's this?" He turned his phone toward me. On his screen was the profile of the woman I picked up a week earlier. The pale woman in the black coat. Her profile picture was her obituary photo. She died in March. Almost a full month before I picked her up. She was killed during a hit and run while waiting for her rideshare. I felt the blood drain from my face. He then typed her name into Google. And the first article said, "Driver fled the scene. Case still unsolved." I shut his phone and told him not to look up anymore. I drove home slowly and sat in my car for nearly an hour. I kept replaying her whisper in my head. "Don't look back." At first, I thought she was warning me not to turn around. But the more I think about it, I don't think she meant physically look back. I think she meant something else. Something darker. Like, don't look back into my case. Don't look into who hit me. Don't uncover what happened. Like she didn't want me to dig deeper. Or maybe something else didn't want me to. I sold that car a month later. But the guy who bought it from me, he messaged me last week. Said he needed to ask something. I thought maybe something was wrong with the engine or the brakes. But no. He asked, "Was there ever a woman who used to sit in the back seat of this car? I keep seeing her in my mirror." That's when I blocked him. Because now I'm sure of one thing. Whatever she was, whoever she was, she didn't appear because of my car. She appeared because of me. And I'm terrified she's not done with me yet. I've always lived alone. Not because I like it, but because I don't really have family left, and roommates have never worked out for me. So when I rented a small one-bedroom house last year, I thought I finally had some peace. But in early 2025, something started happening that made me question my sanity. And eventually made me run from that house forever. It started with the feeling that I wasn't alone. Even when I was dead, it began in January. I'd wake up in the morning and find drawers slightly open. Cabinets I swore I closed the night before would be cracked open by an inch. The fridge door would be ajar just enough for the motor to hum louder. I blamed myself. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I didn't shut things properly. But then my food started disappearing. Not a lot, never big things like whole cartons or leftovers. Just small amounts. A missing apple. Half a sandwich gone. A piece of cheese taken out of the pack. It was subtle enough to ignore, until it wasn't. About a month later, I started hearing noises at night. Not the creaking of an old house. Not pipes. Actual footsteps. Soft. Slow. Deliberate. Sometimes they came from the ceiling. Other times from the walls, mostly the wall behind my bedroom. At first, I thought it was an animal. A raccoon maybe. I even called pest control. But when the guy checked the crawl spaces, the attic, and the walls with his equipment, he told me, "There's nothing living in your walls. No droppings, no nests, no signs at all." Then he paused and added something that stuck with me. "Whatever you're hearing, it's walking on 2 feet." That sentence haunted me for weeks. In early March, things escalated. Objects in my house started disappearing. Not food this time, but personal things. A shirt. A pair of socks. My phone charger. A paperback book I was halfway through. I'd search everywhere for them and find nothing. Then a day or two later, they'd reappear. But in the wrong places. My missing socks were found neatly folded inside a kitchen cabinet. My charger was coiled up on the bathroom sink. My book was sitting upright in the hallway, open to a page I hadn't reached yet. It felt like someone was taking my things, looking at them, and putting them back somewhere random. Like they were watching me. Learning me point one night, after hearing the footsteps again, I lost it. I grabbed a flashlight and started checking every corner of the house. I opened the attic entrance, nothing. I checked the crawl space, empty. But then, in the hallway closet behind some old paint buckets, I found something I hadn't noticed before. A thin wooden panel on the wall, with a small metal latch. A hidden door. My heart dropped into my stomach. I slowly opened it. The panel led into a narrow dark crawl space. Not part of the house blueprint, not mentioned in the rental agreement, nothing. The space was barely wide enough for someone to crawl through. And inside, there were things. My things. The missing shirt. The socks. The apple cores. Empty food wrappers. Even the paperback book. All stuffed inside that space along with a pile of blankets and a small pillow. Someone had been living in there. Someone small. Someone quiet. Someone patient. I backed away shaking, slammed the panel shut, locked my bedroom door, and didn't sleep a second that night. The next morning, I called the police. 2 officers came and searched the crawl space. They crawled deeper inside with flashlights, and after a few minutes one of them shouted, "I found something." He came out holding a small Polaroid. It was a photo of me, sleeping, taken from inside my bedroom. My blood ran cold. The officers searched the entire hidden tunnel system. Turns out it ran behind multiple walls. But they didn't find anyone. Not that day. Not the next. But the nights after that. The noises got worse. More footsteps. Heavier breathing. Scratching against the walls. Like whoever was in there knew I found their hiding place. And they were angry that it was around 3 a.m. when I woke up to the sound of my closet door sliding open. Very slowly. Creak. I froze, staring into the dark. Then I heard something even more disturbing. Someone whispering. Soft. Fast. Like they were arguing with themselves. I saw movement inside the closet. A hand. Thin. Dirty. Reaching out of the shadows. I bolted out of bed, ran out of the house barefoot, and sprinted to my neighbor's lawn. I called the police shaking so hard I could barely speak. This time, they found him. A man. Around 5 feet 4 inches. Malnourished. Filthy. He had been living behind my walls for at least 6 months. There were tunnels he had carved out himself, leading between the closet, the kitchen, and even under the floor. He admitted he watched me sleep almost every night. And the worst part? He said he had been waiting for the right moment to come out for real. I didn't even go back to pick up my things. The police retrieved essential items for me. I moved into a new place, a 3rd-floor apartment with solid concrete walls and no crawl spaces. But sometimes, late at night, I swear I hear it again. A soft, slow tapping sound. Like fingernails brushing the inside of a wall. I went camping once in my life. Only once. And after what happened last summer, I don't think I'll ever do it again. This happened in July of 2025. Me and my friend Ethan planned a simple overnight camping trip in a remote wooded area about 2 hours from our town. Nothing extreme, just a tent, a small fire, and some beers. We expected a fun, quiet night. What we got instead still keeps me awake sometimes. That we arrived around 7 p.m. The sun was still up, the woods peaceful, everything normal. We pitched the tent, set up the fire pit, and cooked some food. It was honestly relaxing, a break from the noise of everyday life. But around 11 p.m., when the fire started burning low, we heard something in the woods. A scream. Not a human scream. Not an animal either. It was this long, distorted, echoing howl. Like a woman screaming underwater. It rose and fell in this unnatural way. Not like something was in pain. But like something was calling out. Ethan laughed, trying to shake it off. Probably a fox or coyote, he said. But I knew that wasn't a coyote. I had heard coyotes before. This sound was different. Wrong. And it was close. Around 1 a.m. we crawled into the tent and zipped it shut. The woods were dead quiet. Too quiet. There wasn't a single cricket, not a single rustle of leaves. Just the kind of silence that makes your ears ring. Then, right as we started to fall asleep, it started again. A scream so loud and sudden that both of us sat up instantly. But this time, it wasn't far away. It was inside the tree line. Maybe 30 yards from the tent. Ethan whispered, "What the hell is that?" Neither of us moved. We just sat there frozen, listening. Another scream came. But this one was different. It started as a deep, low moan. And then rose sharply into a piercing shriek that made the fabric of the tent vibrate. Like something was standing right outside. Something big. Something angry that we turned off our flashlights, hoping whatever it was wouldn't see us. But a minute later, we heard it. Crunch. 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 Heavy footsteps walking slowly around our tent. Not human. Not the delicate steps of an animal. Heavy. Deliberate. One foot dragging slightly behind the other. Ethan mouthed silently, "Don't move." The steps stopped right behind my side of the tent. I could hear breathing. Not normal breathing. It was wet. Gurgling. Like someone inhaling through blood. I held my breath, afraid it would hear me. The breathing got louder. Then something pressed against the tent wall. A hand. I could see its shape through the thin fabric. Long fingers. Too long. It dragged its hand down the side of the tent. Slowly. Feeling the surface. I wanted to scream, but nothing came out then, from just inches away. Through the tent fabric. I heard a whisper. A voice that didn't sound human. It sounded almost like a recording played backward. A distorted whisper that said, "Come out." Ethan grabbed my arm so hard it left marks, and we both sat there, unmoving, shaking, silently begging for the sun to rise. Whatever it was. It stayed there for a full minute. Just breathing. Dragging its hand along the fabric. Whispering that same broken phrase. "Come out." Then the footsteps resumed. Slowly. Walking around the tent again. Then they faded into the woods. We didn't sleep at all. When the sky finally started turning blue, we unzipped the tent carefully and stepped outside. Our campsite was messed up. Not destroyed, just disturbed. But the worst part? The footprints. Large, human-shaped. But twisted. Each foot was long, too long, and the toes were spread wide like claws. And one foot drag mark followed behind the other. Exactly like we heard during the night. Even creepier. They stopped right beside the tent wall. Where I saw the hand pressing through. The handprint itself was still there, smudged into the dirt. It had 6 fingers. 6. We packed everything in complete silence. We didn't talk about it on the drive home. We didn't tell anyone for months. 2 weeks after we got home, Ethan called me in the middle of the night. He was whispering, terrified. "It's outside," he said. "It's outside my window." I told him to call the police, but he whispered, "No, it's not human. It's the same thing from the woods." Then there was a tapping sound through the phone. Slow. Deliberate. Like someone tapping on glass. Ethan whispered, "It keeps saying it." "What?" I asked. "It's whispering again." I held my breath as he said the words. "Come out." Then the call cut off. The next morning I went to his house. He was fine, shaken, but fine. But he told me something I'll never forget. I never opened the curtains. But when I checked in the morning, there was a handprint on the glass. 6 fingers. I haven't been camping since. And I don't plan to. Whatever that thing was. It didn't belong in those woods. And I pray it never finds me again. I live in a small ground-floor apartment tucked between 2 massive buildings. It's not the nicest area, but it's quiet, at least, that's what I believed before this happened. My bedroom window faces a narrow alley, barely 3 feet wide, where sunlight almost never reaches. Nothing should be able to stand there comfortably. Not without feeling trapped. But someone did. And he stood there every night. I first noticed him on a cold Monday. I woke up around 3:20 a.m. to a faint tapping against the glass. Not a knock. Not a scratch. A tap, spaced evenly like someone rhythmically flicking their nail onto the window. Tap. 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 I sat up slowly, wondering if it was part of a dream. But then I saw it, a silhouette in the dark alley, tall, thin, and absolutely motionless. At first, I convinced myself it was a trash bin or some warped shadow. I didn't have the courage to get closer. I just closed the blinds and tried to sleep. But the tapping didn't stop. And that's when I realized it wasn't random, the taps matched my movement. When I breathed heavier, they sped up. When I froze, they stopped completely. Like he was reacting to me. The next morning, when the sun finally came up, I checked outside. The alley was empty. No footprints. No trash bins. Nothing tall enough to create that shadow. It should have ended there. But of course, it didn't. This time the tapping started earlier, around 1 a.m. Again, the silhouette was there. But something was different. His head was tilted as if he was listening. Studying. Learning. I tried to record him, but as soon as I lifted my phone, the tapping changed. It turned into a slow dragging sound across the glass, like a finger sliding directly against it. Scree. Scree. That sound felt intentional. Almost playful. I closed my curtains and left every light on. I didn't sleep that. I bought pepper spray and kept it next to my bed. The tapping didn't happen this time. Instead, he spoke. A low whisper seeped through the window frame like air. Do you ever wonder, who watches you sleep? I froze. The voice wasn't loud. It wasn't threatening. It sounded curious, like he genuinely wanted to know the answer. I didn't get up. I didn't scream. I just lay there trembling, clutching my blanket until morning. That I invited a friend to spend the night. I didn't tell him the full story, just that someone weird has been in the alley. At 2 a.m., we both woke up at the same time. Not from tapping. Not from a voice. But from breathing. Slow, raspy breathing coming from the other side of my window. My friend reached for the blinds. I begged him not to. He pulled them anyway. And standing flush against the window was a man. Pale. Sunken eyes. Lips curled into a slow, unnatural smile. His breath fogged the glass in long, warm bursts. My friend shouted and stumbled backward. The man didn't move. Not even when my friend turned on the light. Not even when we screamed at him. He just smiled wider. Like he enjoyed that we were finally looking back. We called the police, but by the time they arrived, he was gone again. No footprints, nothing disturbed, nothing showing that anyone had even been there. They probably thought we imagined it. I wished we had. This was the last night. I tried sleeping at my friend's place, but I woke up around 3 a.m. to my phone vibrating. A text. From my number. My own number. It read, "You're in the wrong bed." My stomach dropped. Then came another. "Come home. I'm waiting." My friend saw the messages and insisted on calling the police again, but I already knew they wouldn't find anything. Because this man, if he even was a man, wasn't breaking in. He wasn't climbing fences or cutting screens. He was simply there. Whenever he wanted. I moved out 2 days later. Found a place on the 3rd floor. No alley. No easily accessible windows. And for a while, things felt normal again. Until last night. When I woke up at 3:20 a.m. to a faint tapping. Not on my window this time. But on the wall. Right behind my headboard. Tap. 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 That same rhythm. That same patience. Like he had finally found where I sleep again. I work the late shift at a hospital, which means I'm usually heading home around 2 or 3 a.m. My commute is a quiet one, mostly empty streets and long stretches of dark highway. I never had a reason to be scared of driving at night. Until 2 months ago. Because now, no matter where I go or what time it is, I can feel her back there. It started small, like everything does that I got in my car after a long shift. Exhausted, barely thinking. As soon as I pulled out of the parking lot, I noticed something in the rearview mirror. A shape. A smudge. A figure sitting in the middle of my back seat. It was so faint that I thought I smudged the mirror or was half asleep. When I turned to look, the seat was empty. I wiped the mirror and told myself it was stress. But deep down, something felt wrong. It wasn't a trick of the light. It wasn't my imagination. It was someone. The next night, I heard it. Soft, shallow breathing coming from directly behind me. Subtle enough that I couldn't be sure if it was real, but close enough that I could feel it brushing the back of my neck. I turned the radio off. The breathing continued. I stopped the car and spun around. The back seat was empty, but the air was still warm. Like someone had just exhaled. This night changed everything. I was driving home on the highway when something shifted in the mirror. A head. Not fully clear, not solid, more like a pale outline, as if someone was half there, half not. Long hair. Sunken eyes. A woman staring at me through the mirror. She didn't blink. She didn't move. She just sat there, hands folded neatly in her lap, leaning slightly forward like she was listening to my breathing. I slammed the brakes and pulled over. My heart was pounding so hard I thought my chest would burst. Again, when I turned around, nothing. But the mirror never lies. And in that mirror, she was still there. Closer now that I skipped a night of driving by staying at a coworker's place. But eventually, I had to go home. At around 3 a.m., halfway through the commute, I heard a whisper from the back seat. It wasn't weak. It wasn't ghostly. It was clear, right in my ear. Don't leave me behind. The voice was female, dry, tired, almost pleading. I stopped breathing. I didn't turn around. I didn't want to see her face again in the mirror. Then she spoke again, only this time, right beside me. I followed you home once before. That line froze me. Because I realized something terrifying. She wasn't tied to my car. She was tied to me. Things escalated fast after the voice. When I got home that night, my porch light was already on. I never leave it on. When I walked inside, the living room smelled like damp earth. The same smell that filled my car whenever she appeared. I checked every room. Everything was locked. But when I entered my bedroom, I felt it immediately. Someone had been sitting on my bed. The covers were indented. Cold. Heavy. Fresh. On my pillow was a long black strand of hair. The same hair I saw in my mirror that I installed cameras inside my car, thinking maybe I could catch something. I reviewed the footage every morning. For days, nothing. Then one morning, at exactly 3:12 a.m. on the drive home, the camera lens fogged over, like someone exhaled directly into it. A whisper followed. You trust mirrors, but not me. And then, a face appeared. Not fully. Just half. A pale cheek. A dark eye. A cracked, trembling smile. My breath left my body. Because she wasn't in the very back seat anymore. She was sitting directly behind the driver's seat. Right behind me that I started taking ride shares to work. Stopped using my car entirely. But that didn't matter. Around 3 a.m., I woke up to the unmistakable feeling of someone sitting on the edge of my bed. A weight pushed into the mattress. A cold breath touched my cheek. I didn't open my eyes. I didn't want to see her. But then she whispered, gently this time, almost comfortingly. "I sit with you so you won't be lonely." And then she lay down beside me. I could feel the mattress tilt, as if someone slid under the covers. Her hair brushed my ear, her breath steady and slow. I lay frozen until morning. When I finally looked, she wasn't there. But the indentation of a body remained on the bed for almost an hour after sunrise. Last night was the worst. I was sitting in my living room when I heard the familiar soft breathing behind me. But it wasn't in the car. It wasn't in my bedroom. It was right behind my chair. I didn't turn around. Then, slowly, gently, a cold hand rested on my shoulder. Not violent. Not aggressive. Just claiming me. And I heard her whisper again. "I was in your car first. But I like it here better. Now I sleep with the lights on. Not that it matters. Because I don't hear breathing anymore. I hear footsteps. Soft. Slow. Crossing my hallway every night around 3 a.m. She doesn't sit in the back seat now. She walks." I live in a one-bedroom apartment on the second floor. Nothing fancy. Just a cheap rental in a quiet part of town. I chose this place because it felt safe. There's a big window in my bedroom that faces a small parking lot. At night, the area is usually empty, just a single street lamp flickering on and off. That window was the reason I moved in. The view was calming. Now it terrifies me. Because someone uses it to watch me sleep. It was around 2:45 a.m. I woke up for no reason. No sound, no dream, just a sudden jolt of fear. My room was dark except for the bluish glare from the street lamp outside. When my eyes adjusted, I noticed something on the window. A shape. A silhouette. A man standing right outside the glass. At first, I thought it was a shadow cast by someone walking past the light. But the figure wasn't moving. It wasn't fading. It was standing perfectly still, and facing me. I sat up, blinked, rubbed my eyes. The figure didn't disappear. That's when I realized something horrifying. My apartment is on the second floor. There's no balcony. No ledge. No fire escape. There is no possible way for a person to stand outside that window. I froze. I didn't get up. I didn't scream. I just stared at that dark shape until the sun came up. Once it got bright, the silhouette faded, like smoke dissolving. I convinced myself I imagined it. But deep down, I knew I didn't. The next night, I went to bed with the blinds closed. I figured if I couldn't see out, I wouldn't scare myself. But around 3 a.m., I woke up again. This time, to tapping. Very slow. Very faint. A fingertip tapping on glass. Tap, tap, tap. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Then the tapping stopped. And I heard something worse, breathing. Soft. Steady. Too close. Coming from the window. Fear forced me to turn my head, just enough to see the blinds. A shadow was behind them. Not just a shape, two eyes. Two pale, glowing eyes staring at me through the blinds like he was inches away. I stayed awake until morning again. When I opened the blinds, nothing was outside. But the glass was fogged up. And on it, a streak. Like someone dragged their finger down the window. By the fourth night, I stopped pretending this wasn't happening. I set up my phone on a tripod and pointed it at the window before going to bed. I slept with the lights off. At exactly 2:58 a.m., I woke up gasping. My heart was racing, but I didn't know why. Then I saw it. The blinds were slightly lifted. Just a finger's width. But enough. Enough for an eye to look through. His eye. A milky, cloudy eye staring into my room like he was inches from the glass. I couldn't scream. I couldn't move. We stared at each other for what felt like a full minute before the blinds slowly lowered on their own. When I checked the camera footage in the morning, everything looked normal. No movement. No lifting. No figure. Like it never happened. But I know what I saw. I wasn't dreaming. Things escalated fast. That night, it wasn't tapping that woke me up. It was talking. A raspy, shaky whisper coming from the window. "Let me see you." I sat upright instantly. "Let me see you. Don't turn away. I'm right here." The voice wasn't angry. It wasn't loud. It was sad. Begging. I couldn't bring myself to look. I covered my head with the blanket like a terrified child. The whisper grew softer, like he had moved his mouth right up against the glass. "Don't hide. I've watched you for so long." I stayed under the blanket until sunrise. When I finally got up, I walked to the window on shaking legs. The glass was icy cold. And on it were handprints. Two clear, full handprints. Except they were too long. The fingers stretched out unnaturally, leaving faint scratches down the pane that I stopped sleeping. I'm not exaggerating. For 2 days I didn't sleep at all. But on the third night, I passed out around 4 a.m. from pure exhaustion. When I woke up, it wasn't to tapping or whispering. It was to the sound of someone breathing right beside my bed. I slowly turned my head toward the window. He wasn't outside. He was inside the glass, as if his face was pressed from the other side of a thin membrane. His features were clearer than ever. Gray skin. Cracked lips. Eyes completely white. A smile carved too wide, stretching into his cheeks. His face bulged outward, like he was pushing through, like the window was barely holding him back. His mouth opened. And in a voice much clearer than before, he whispered. "Soon." I fell out of bed and crawled to the door. When I looked back, the window was normal again. Just glass reflecting my empty room. This happened last night, and I still don't understand how. I was lying on the couch, refusing to go into my bedroom. All the lights were on. TV was playing quietly. I tried to stay awake. At 3:07 a.m., every light in my apartment flickered at once. The TV shut off. Then, tapping. Not from the bedroom window. From the living room window. I stood up and stared at it. The blinds began to rise, slowly, smoothly, like someone was lifting them from the outside. But my living room window is even higher off the ground than my bedroom one. The blinds rose all the way up. No one was there. The street lamp outside flickered. And then I saw it. A hand. A long, gray, skeletal hand reaching out of the glass, gripping the sill from the inside. He wasn't trying to get in. He was already halfway through. I ran to my bedroom, slammed the door, jumped out the second-floor window, and landed painfully on the grass below. I haven't gone back. My landlord called today. He said my apartment is disturbed, whatever that means. He said the bedroom is freezing cold, even with the heat on. He also said something else. Something that made my stomach drop. Your upstairs neighbor complained. They said someone keeps staring at them through their window. But no one is supposed to be above you. I didn't have the courage to explain. Because I know exactly who it is. He found a new window. And he's not done watching. I live on a quiet suburban street where nothing exciting ever happens. Most of the houses are occupied by older couples or families with young kids. One of these families lives directly across from me. A husband, a wife, and their teenage daughter, Emily. I've seen the parents plenty of times. They're friendly, normal, always mowing the lawn or leaving for work. But their daughter, I only ever see her at night. And the more I see her, the more I realize. She's not normal. The first time I noticed her was around midnight. I was in my living room, about to go to bed when I glanced out my front window. Emily was standing on the sidewalk. Not walking. Not waiting. Just standing dead still and staring at my house. Her hair hung over her face. Her hands were at her sides. She didn't sway, didn't fidget, she didn't move at all. At first, I thought maybe she had snuck out and was just standing there in teenage rebellion. But she stood there for almost 20 minutes without moving an inch. Eventually I walked away from the window. When I came back, she was gone. The next night, around the same time, I saw her again. This time she wasn't on the sidewalk, she was standing in her own front yard, facing my house. And this time, she was smiling. Not a normal smile. Not a happy smile. Her mouth stretched impossibly wide, almost like it hurt to make that expression. And she held that smile for so long her face looked frozen that way. I watched her for maybe a minute before the porch light across the street flicked on. Her mother stepped outside. But Emily didn't react. Her mother didn't look at her. Didn't call her inside. Didn't say a word. She just stepped outside, stood behind her daughter, and stared forward with her. Neither of them moved. I lowered the blinds and didn't look again. 2 nights passed without seeing her. I started to feel stupid, like maybe I exaggerated what I saw. But around 2 a.m. on the 4th night, I woke up to a sound that froze my blood. Scratch, scratch, scratch. The sound was coming from my bedroom window. My second-floor window. I slowly walked toward it, and when I pulled the curtain aside, Emily was standing on my roof. Her face pressed against the glass. Her smile stretched even wider than before. Her fingers dragging slowly across the windowpane. She shouldn't have been able to get up there. There's no tree near my house, no ladder, no balcony. She shouldn't have been able to reach the window. Or cling to it like she was weightless. When she saw me, her smile twitched. And then she mouthed something. 3 words. Come play outside. I fell backward and scrambled out of the room. When I came back with my phone flashlight, she was gone. The next night, I didn't sleep at all. I sat in my living room, all lights on, barely breathing. Around 3:10 a.m., someone knocked on my front door. 3 slow knocks. I already knew who it was. I walked to the peephole, heart racing. Emily stood on my porch. Barefoot. Head down. Long hair covering her face. She didn't move until I looked through the peephole. Then her head snapped upward, her face pressed to the door, and she whispered, "I know you're awake." Her voice wasn't a teenage girl's voice. It sounded deeper. Older. Like something else was speaking through her. I didn't answer. I didn't move. I just stood there until the knocking stopped. When I finally found the courage to look again, she was gone. But the welcome mat was soaked with muddy footprints. Tiny footprints. Too small for someone her age. By the 7th night, I was done pretending. I went to her parents. I knocked on their door early in the morning. Her mother answered. I said, "I think Emily has been coming to my house at night." Her mother didn't look confused or surprised. She looked terrified. Her eyes darted behind her, toward the hallway, and she whispered, "Please, don't talk to her. Don't answer her. And no matter what you do, don't let her in." Then she shut the door. Quickly. Like she was scared I'd mention the name again. I stood there in shock. If she was afraid of her own daughter, then what was Emily? Last night was the worst. I woke up to the scratching again. Not on my window this time. But on the wall. Inside my house. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Slow, deliberate, like someone dragging their nails along the drywall. I stepped into the hallway. And there she was. Standing in the darkness at the end of the hall. Her back to me. Her head tilted, listening. Her voice came out in that deep, unnatural tone. "You're no fun. Why won't you come outside?" I stepped back. And she stepped closer. Her body jerked unnaturally, like her limbs didn't bend the right way. Like something was wearing her body like a costume. "Let's play." I ran into my bedroom, slammed the door, and jumped out the window, just like I did in Story 9. I didn't stop running until I reached a gas station miles away. Today. This morning, I learned something that made everything worse. Emily's mother called the police. Not because I ran. Not because I complained. But because Emily has been missing for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Before I ever saw her on the sidewalk. Before the scratching. Before the rooftop. Before the knocking. Her parents haven't seen her. And yet, she keeps coming to my house. Which means whatever I've been seeing, it isn't their daughter. And tonight, I already know she'll be back. Because the last thing I heard before I jumped out the window was her whispering behind me. "If you leave again, I'll just follow."